My mom just walked back in my life. After 17 years of abandoning me, my father thought that he would never see her again. We even went to the police and tried to do a missing persons report, but you can't really do that when an adult leaves on their own free will. Essentially, my mother abandoned me so she could go join some spiritual group. Well, she's back, like I said, and it's going to be a nightmare. She's showing up at my work. She's showing up at my house. She's trying to get my dad to convince me to give her a chance, and I don't want to. She says that she's changed, she's gone to therapy, and she's ready to be a mom now. I'm 32 years old. I don't need a mom now. I needed a mom when I was 14 and didn't know who to turn to when I was trying to learn to cook. I needed a mom at some of the worst times in my life, but not now. So you know what I told her? My mother, Lenora, walked out on our family when I was 15. I'm 32 now. She's been trying to force her way back into my life for the past 2 years with this intensity that makes me feel like I'm losing my mind. But I need to start from the beginning for any of this to make sense, and honestly, there's so much to unpack that I barely know where to begin. Growing up, my family looked perfect from the outside. My father, Griffin, worked as a respiratory therapist at 3 different hospitals to keep us afloat. He would work these insane rotating shifts, 7 nights on at the Memorial, then 4-day shifts at St. Mary. Then weekend coverage at the Children's Hospital, which was a nightmare. The man basically lived in scrubbed and survived on gas station coffee and whatever leftovers we had in the fridge. My mother was supposed to be the stable one, the anchor. She homeschooled me at a very young age, and my younger brother Elias, who's now 29, until I was 11, which everyone thought this was beautiful, such a devout mother. The reality was completely different, but I didn't understand that until much, much later. See, my mom had always been what she called spiritually gifted. When I was really young, like 5 or 6, I just thought it was normal that mom would spend hours in the basement with candles everywhere, talking to what she said were guides and angels. She would burn this specific incense, it was sandalwood, and something else that made my eyes water, and we weren't allowed to interrupt her during her session. These could last anywhere from 2 hours to an entire day. I remember once when I was 7, Elias had a fever of 103 and I could not wake mom, because it was her in her mediation state. I had to call our neighbor, who drove us to the urgent care, and when mom finally came back 12 hours later, she said the spirits had been showing her something important and she could not break the connection. Well, the homeschooling was erratic at best. Some days she would be super intense about it, making us do workbooks after workbooks, drill multiplication tables until we cried. Other days she would declare that traditional education was poisoning our aura, and we would spend the entire day walking through the woods behind our house while she pointed out which trees had good energy and which ones were corrupted. I taught myself to read properly using my dad's old medical textbook because mom's teaching methods involved something about absorbing the essence of words through meditation. Elias struggled more. He didn't really read fluently until he was 10, and even now he has issues with it that I think stem from those early years. Well, the thing that makes me the absolute angriest, looking back, is that Dad had no idea how bad it was. He was working himself to death to pay for Mom's spiritual development. She was constantly ordering crystals, special herbs, these expensive books about conscious expansion. She went to retreats that cost thousands of dollars, promising this would be the last one. Well, that she was so close to her breakthrough, and Dad would pick up extra shifts to cover them. I remember finding him once asleep, standing up in the kitchen, still in his scrubs, holding a piece of toast that he's been too tired to eat. Well, when I was 12, Mom announced that she had a vision that she was meant to be a healer. Not like a medical healer, she was very clear that Western medicine was part of the problem. She wanted to do energy healing, past life regression, something that she called soul retrieval. And Dad was supportive because Father was always supportive. He converted half the garage into a treatment room for her and built this whole setup with a massage table and soundproofing and everything. He saw maybe 3 clients over 2 years, and one of them was just our mailman who felt bad for her. Well, but then when I was 14, everything changed. Mom met somebody at one of her retreats. She never told us his name, just called him Teacher. He supposedly ran this healing center in Arizona where people would pay $10,000 a week to have their spiritual blocks removed. He told Mom that she had the strangest, strongest gift that he ever encountered, and that she was wasting it in the material world. That's when things got really, really weird. Well, she started disappearing for days at a time. She would tell Father that she was going to advanced training sessions, but she would come back looking wild-eyed, and talked about how we were holding her back from her purpose. She stopped cooking entirely, said the spirits told her that preparing food was tethering her to the physical plane. Elias and I learned to live on peanut butter and sandwiches and whatever we could microwave, and I got really good at forging her signature on the school forums. I started going to public school, by the way, and pretending everything was normal when teachers asked why my parents never came to any of the conferences. The breaking point came in October of my freshman year of high school. I came home from school to find Mom in the backyard, burning all of our family photos in a metal trash can. Not in an angry way at all, she was completely calm, almost serene. When I asked her what the hell she was doing, she said, "Teacher." Teacher had told her that attachments to the past were preventing her from ascending to the next level of consciousness. She looked at me like I was a stranger and said, "You're part of the illusion, Griffin. You're not real. None of this is real." I called Dad at work hysterical, and he came home immediately, which I've never seen him do before, and they had this massive fight. The only time I ever heard my dad raise his voice, as a matter of fact, and well, Mom just kept saying she was being called to serve humanity, and that we were selfish for trying to keep her small. Dad begged her to get help and said he would pay for the therapy, the medication, whatever, and she laughed at him. Actually laughed and said psychology was a tool of oppression designed to suppress divine gifts. 3 days later, she was gone. She even left a note that said, "I choose enlightenment over ego. Do not look for me." Well, we did look for her, obviously. Dad filed a missing persons report, but the police said that she left voluntarily. She's an adult, so there's nothing they could do. We found out 6 months later through her sister Daphne that she joined Teacher's compound in Arizona. Daphne had driven out there to try to bring her home and found her living in what was basically a cult. Mom had shaved her head, was wearing only white robes, and went by the name Starlight. She told Daphne that Lenora was gone and that she had reborn herself as her true identity, Starlight. For 3 years, we heard nothing. Even Father threw himself into an even deeper hole of work. I took care of Elias, made sure he did his homework, got him to school, packed his lunches. I was basically a 16-year-old parent, and I was drowning. Started having panic attacks, couldn't sleep, and my grades tanked. The school counselor tried to help, but what I was supposed to do? Nothing. I mean, what was I going to say? Oh, my mom abandoned us to join a spiritual cult, and now I'm raising my brother while my dad works 100 hours a week. I just told her I was stressed about college applications. Then, when I was 18, Mom surfaced again. The compound had been shut down by the FBI for tax evasion and fraud. Teacher, whose real name turns out to be Gary, from New Jersey, he went to prison. All the followers were basically dumped on the street with nothing, and Mom called Dad from a payphone, right outside of, well, somewhere north of Arizona. Couldn't really tell the exact location, saying she made a mistake and wanted to come home. Dad was ready to take her back immediately. That's who he is. Endlessly forgiving, always seeing the best in people, but I lost it completely. Told him if she came back, I was leaving. I meant it to. I'd already been accepted to college 3 states away, and I would have left that minute if he let her come back. Elias was confused and hurt, and he barely remembered the good times before she went off the deep end. But he still wanted his mom. It was the worst fight our family ever had, with Dad caught in the middle of it. Eventually, Dad told her she could not come home. Not yet. She needs to get help first. Real help. Not spiritual healing or energy work. She needed to see an actual psychiatrist, get evaluated, and possibly get medication. And Mom refused. said psychiatry would destroy her connection to the divine realm and that we were asking her to basically get rid of her true self. She chose her beliefs again over us. Again. She bounced around for a few years after that, lived in various spiritual communities, and worked at a health food store. She did tarot reading at farmers markets, and every few months she would call Dad and cry about how hard life was, how she missed us, but the second he mentioned getting professional help, she would hang up and disappear again. She started a blog called Journey to the Light, where she posted these long, rambling entries about her spiritual insights. I hate that I read every single one, looking for some sign that she missed us, that she regretted what she did. Instead, it was all about her freedom from the prison of, being domestic, and how releasing earthly attachments had liberated her soul. I went to college, studied environmental engineering, and tried to build a normal life. Got into a serious relationship with this amazing woman, Colette, who somehow didn't run when I told her about my family baggage. Started seeing a therapist who specialized in cult survivors and family abandonment. Slowly, painfully, I started to heal. Elias had a rougher time, dropped out of college, struggled with substance abuse, for a while at least, but eventually got clean and became a chef. He's doing pretty well now, works at this incredible restaurant that's downtown, and has a girlfriend who adores him. We survived. Dad finally started dating again when I was 25. He met this wonderful woman named Sarah at one of his hospitals. She also is a respiratory therapist, understands crazy hours, and doesn't judge our complicated history. They got married 2 years ago in this small ceremony in her parents' backyard. It was beautiful. Dad looked happier than I'd seen him in decades. And then 2 years ago, Mom just reappeared. But this time she wasn't calling Dad, she was calling me. I was at work, in the middle of reviewing environmental impact assessments for a new water treatment, when my phone rang. Unknown number from Oregon. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up, and I heard it. "Griffin, my beautiful boy, is that you?" I hadn't heard that voice in 7 years, and I literally could not speak. I just sat there in my cubicle listening to her cry and tell me how sorry she was, how she's been lost in delusion and had finally found her way back to reality. Turns out she had what she called a breakthrough during mediation retreats, but when she described it, sounded like, to me, a psychiatric break. She's been meditating for 6 hours straight when she suddenly saw Elias and me as children crying for her and realized that everything teacher had told her was a lie. That her family was real and she abandoned the only true thing in her life for a fantasy. She checked herself into a psychiatric facility voluntarily, been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and psychotic features, and had been on medication for 6 months. She was living in Portland, working at a bookstore, going to therapy twice a week, and wanted to make amends. I should have been happy, right? This was what we begged for her to get help, to acknowledge reality, to want to be our mother again, but all I felt was rage. Pure volcanic rage that she could just decide now, after 14 years, that she wanted back in. After I raised myself and Elias, after Dad had worked himself into 3 chronic health conditions, and, after we rebuilt our entire lives without her. I told her I needed time to think and hung up. Then I threw my phone across the parking lot and screamed until my throat was raw. My coworker found me having a complete breakdown by my car and drove me home. I called in sick for 3 days and just laid in bed, feeling like the abandoned 15-year-old all over again. She started writing letters, long detailed letters about her treatment, her medication, her therapy sessions. She included pages from her journal where she processed the harm that she caused. She even sent photos of herself looking older, gray, more tired, but clear-eyed, more clear than I'd seen her since I was a kid. She wrote about understanding how that she's been manic during many of her spiritual experiences, and that delusions had felt completely real to her, and that she was grieving the years that she lost to untreated mental illness. I did not respond to any of them. But she kept writing. Every week, another letter. She never asked for forgiveness, never pushed for a response, just shared her journal, her regrets, her hopes that someday I might be ready to hear her. She sent them to Elias too, and unlike me, he started writing back. They began corresponding regularly, and after 6 months he agreed to meet her in person. He came back from that meeting a mess. She said that she looked like our mom but seemed like a completely different person, quiet, careful, constantly checking if she was overstepping, and she cried when she saw him, but had not tried to hug him until he offered. They talked for 3 hours, and she answered every question honestly, even the brutal ones about why she chose her delusions over us. She told him that in her manic state, she genuinely believed that she was saving the world, that sacrificing her family was a noble thing that would benefit humanity, and she said she knows now how insane it sounds, but at the time it felt more real than reality itself. Elias forgave her, not like completely, and definitely not immediately, but he started seeing her once a month for coffee. Then twice a month and weekly dinners, and he says that she's trying so hard it's almost painful to watch. She's read every book on bipolar disorder, every article on family trauma, and she goes to support groups for people who've hurt their families during mental health crisis. She basically is dedicating her entire life to understanding what happened and making sure it never happens again. Dad was harder to convince. Sarah was protective of him, worried that letting Mom back in would undo all the healing that he's done. But Dad got this enormous heart, and when Elias told him how different she was, he agreed to one meeting. Just one. That was a year ago. Now they have coffee once a month. Not as an ex-spouse, but as two people who share children in history. Dad says it helped him find closure to see that she was sick, not evil, and Sarah even met her once and said she seemed haunted, but genuine. Which brings us to now, and why I'm writing this at, check the clock, almost midnight. Last month was my birthday, 32 years of age, and Colette threw me a small party with just close friends. Nothing fancy. We were halfway through dinner when the doorbell rings. Well, Colette answered it, and I heard her say, hi? The way her voice sounded made my stomach drop. It was Mom, standing on my doorstep with a small wrapped present and tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be here. It's your birthday, and I've missed many of them. I wanted to give you this. I'll leave right now. I'm sorry. She turned to go, but something made me say, wait. I don't know why I said it. Maybe she looked so small and sad. Nothing like that wild-eyed woman who burnt our photos exactly 17 years ago. Nope, nothing like that at all. Well, maybe because I was tired of just being angry. Maybe because Colette was squeezing my hand, and that way, that means it's okay, I'm here. You can come in for 5 minutes, I said. She followed us inside like she was afraid the floor might just go and collapse. My friends were all staring, obviously uncomfortable. I introduced her as my mother and watched everyone try to rearrange their faces into something neutral. She sat on the very edge of a chair, holding the little present in her lap like it might explode. I should explain, she started, but I cut her off. Not here, not at my party. She said, okay, of course, I'm sorry. Just wanted to give you this. She held out a present and she says, you don't have to open it now or ever. I just need you to have it. I took it because not taking it seemed cruel somehow. It was light, wrapped in plain brown paper with no bow. My name was written on it in her handwriting, which still looked exactly the same after all these years. Thank you for letting me in. Happy birthday, Griffin. I'm so proud of the man you've become. I know I had nothing to do with it, but I'm proud anyways. Then she left. The whole thing took maybe 3 minutes, but it felt like hours, and my friends tried to go back to normal conversations. But the party was basically over, and everyone left early, giving me extra long hugs and meaningful looks. After everybody was gone, Colette and I sat on the couch with the present between us. Are you gonna open it? Well, I did. Inside was a photo I've never seen before. It was me, maybe 3 years of age, sitting on Mom's lap. We were both laughing at something off camera, and she looked young, happy, and normal. On the back, she wrote, before I got sick. This is the mother I'm trying to find my way back to. No pressure, no expectations, just wanted you to know she existed once. Love, Mom. I cried for about 2 hours, and Colette held me while I sobbed like a child, grieving for something I couldn't even name. The mother in that photo, the family we could have been, the 17 years of emptiness, all of it. Maybe, just maybe. Since then, she texted me once a week, just thinking of you. No need to respond, and I haven't responded. But I also haven't blocked her number, which feels like something. Elias is getting frustrated with me. He says Mom's done everything we asked, got diagnosed, got medicated, went to therapy, took accountability, and he says holding on to anger is just punishing myself. That she was sick, genuinely sick, and that mental illness is a disease, just like cancer or diabetes. While I refuse to forgive her, if she had cancer and couldn't be there for us, would I still not forgive her in that case? But that's different, isn't it? See, cancer doesn't make you choose spiritual delusion over your children. Cancer doesn't make you tell your 15-year-old that he's part of the illusion, and cancer does not make you burn family photos and join a cult and spend 17 years prioritizing your spiritual journey over your kid's actual life. Although, maybe it's not difficult, because when I read about bipolar disorder with psychotic features, it sounds absolutely terrifying. I mean, the mania, the delusions, the absolute certainty that false beliefs are real. It was bad. One article I read described it as living in a different reality that feels more real than real life, and Mom's psychiatric apparently told Elias that she's lucky to be alive, that many people with untreated bipolar disorder for that long end up hurt, are very, very risky behavior. But understanding it intellectually and forgiving it emotionally are two different things. Last week, Colette sat me down for what she called a loving confrontation. She said I talk about Mom constantly, that I'm clearly obsessed with the situation, and that my anger is eating me alive. She's right. I checked Mom's Facebook daily. She's back to using her real name now. I've read every article about bipolar disorder, and I've joined online support groups for children of mentally ill parents. I'm doing everything except the one thing anyone said that I should do. Actually talk to her. What are you afraid of? Colette asked. And the truth is, I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid she'll have another episode and disappear again. I'm afraid she won't, and I'll have to actually deal with having a mother again. I'm afraid I'll forgive her and betray that 15-year-old boy who had to raise himself, and I'm just afraid I won't forgive her and I'll turn into this bitter, angry person forever. I'm afraid that she's really changed, and I'm afraid that she hasn't changed. But mostly, I'm afraid that if I let her back in, I'll have to admit how much I missed her, how much I still miss her, and how, there's this mom-shaped hole in my life that no amount of therapy or success or love from other people can fill it. How I still, at 32 years old, want my mom. My dad called me yesterday. Said Mom's been having a really rough time. The anniversary of when she left is coming up, and it just always triggers a depressive episode. She's been adjusting her medication, going to therapy more frequently, but she's struggling. She told him she dreams about us as children and wakes up crying. She's been volunteering at a mental health nonprofit, telling her story to other parents who've hurt their kids during mental health crisis. And it's just bringing up all her grief and shame. She's not asking you to forgive her. She's not even asking you to see her. She just wants you to know that she thinks about you every day, that she knows what she lost. And I said to my dad, what am I supposed to do with that? Whatever you need to do. But maybe think about what you would tell Elias to do if the situation was reversed. Would you want him to carry this anger forever? That hit hard. Because of course I wouldn't want that for Elias. I'd want him to be free, to heal, to at least consider the possibility of forgiveness. So here's the thing, the internet needs to understand. This isn't just about her leaving, it's about the 3 years of chaos before she left. It's about the homework I had to forge signatures on. It's about Elias's reading delays that still affect him, and it's about Dad's arthritis from working himself to the bone. It's about the thousands of tiny abandonments that came before the big one. But it's also about mental illness, real documented treatable mental illness that she's now managing. It's about someone trying to make amends without demanding forgiveness, and it's about the fact that she's been stable for 2 years now, longer than she ever was stable when I was a kid. Everyone in my life has an opinion. Elias thinks I'm being stubborn, Dad thinks I need to do what feels right, and Sarah thinks I should protect myself. Colette thinks that I should at least meet with her once, and my therapist says there's no right answer, only what I can live with. Mom's family, who I hadn't heard from in years, have started reaching out. Her sister Daphne wrote me this long email about how Mom was showing signs of mental illness even as a teenager, but their parents didn't believe in help, really. How she had periods where she would stay up for days, convinced that she could talk to angels, and then crash into depression so severe she couldn't get out of bed. How the family just thought that she was sensitive and special and never got her help. Daphne says she feels guilty. They all failed Mom by not insisting that she gets treatment earlier. So Mom's mother, my grandmother, whom I have not seen since I was 14, called me last week. She's 83 now, and she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said that she's been in therapy herself, trying to understand how she missed the signs, how she let her daughter spiral into untreated mental illness for decades. And she said Mom was the brightest, most creative child, but also the most troubled, and they just didn't know what to do with her moods and visions. It's also complicated because, yes, Mom was sick, but she also made choices. She chose not to get help when Dad begged her to. She chose teacher in the compound over us, and she chose her spiritual beliefs over her children's well-being. Where does the illness end and the person begins? How much can you blame on bipolar disorder, and how much was just selfishness? I've been reading the other people's stories online. Children of parents with mental illness who forgave and rebuilt the relationship. Children who did not and have no regrets. And children who tried to get, help, but they got burned again. Children who never got the chance because their parents passed away before getting treatment, and there's no roadmap for this. What makes it harder is that I can see how hard she's trying now. Elias shows me pictures sometimes. Mom at her job at the bookstore, recommending titles to customers. Mom at her support group, listening intently to someone else's story. And Mom at her tiny apartment, which apparently has photos of us everywhere. Frozen at the ages we were when she left. She looks older, sadder, but also more present than she ever was when I was a kid. Elias says that she asks about me every time they meet. Not pushing, just how's Griffin? And when he tells her anything, that I got promoted, that Colette and I are thinking about getting a dog, that I'm training for a half marathon, she lights up like he's given her the greatest gift. She writes everything down in a little notebook, like she's trying to build a picture of who I am now, piece by piece. Well, the stupidest thing? I want to tell her things. I want to tell her about my job, about the project that I'm leading to clean up contaminated groundwater. I want to tell her about Colette's promotion and how proud I am for her. I want to tell her about the sourdough starter I've been maintaining for 6 months and how I finally made a perfect loaf last week. These are things that you tell your mother, and for 17 years I've had no mom to tell them to. But then I remember coming home to find her talking to empty air, insisting that beings of light were more important than her children. I remember Elias crying because Mom forgot to feed us again. Too busy with her spiritual work. I remember Dad's face when he realized she emptied our savings account for another retreat. And I remember it all. And the anger just comes back. Well, guys, 2 days ago I did something I haven't done in 17 years. I wrote her a letter. Not to send, just to get it off my mind. It was exactly 12 pages of rage and hurt and confusion, and I wrote about every missed birthday, every school play that she did not attend, and every night I stayed up with Elias when he had nightmares calling for her. I wrote about how I can't listen to certain songs because she used to sing them, and I wrote about how I still can't eat spaghetti with meat sauce because it was the only thing she cooked consistently, and now it makes me nauseous. I even wrote about the therapy bills, the anxiety medication, and the way I still sometimes wake up at 15 years old, wondering if today's the day that she comes home. But I also wrote about the photo she gave me and about how I stared at it for hours, trying to remember being the small person that loved, that person that felt safe in her arms. I wrote about how Elias says she's different now and how Dad says that she seems at peace and how even Sarah admits that she seems genuinely committed to her recovery. And at the end of the letter, I wrote a question. What if you had gotten help earlier, Mom? What would have been a normal family? Well, would it be us? Would you have been the mother in that photo? I'm not gonna send it, but writing it made me feel pretty good. I've also realized something. I've been waiting for her to do something to earn my forgiveness, but maybe that's not how it works. Maybe it's not about her at all, and maybe it's about me deciding I'm ready to stop carrying this. Yesterday, Elias invited me to lunch. When I got to the restaurant, Mom was there. He immediately starts to apologize, saying he didn't mean to ambush me, but Mom was already standing up to leave, saying that she didn't know that I would be here and that she would leave. I should have been absolutely furious at Elias for tricking me, at Mom for being there, at the whole situation, but instead I just felt tired. So tired. Sit down. Both of you sit down. We sat there for 2 hours and we didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about forgiveness or healing or any of that stuff. We talked about small things, the weather, the menu, Elias's new recipe for carbonara, and Mom's job at the bookstore, my half-marathon training and Colette's promotion. Normal things a normal family might talk about at lunch. When the check came, Mom reached for her purse, but I grabbed it first and I said I got it. She looked at me with such surprise and gratitude that I looked away. As we were leaving, she said, "Thank you. Thank you for staying." And I said, "I'm not promising anything." She said, "I know. So here's my question, Internet. Am I the a-hole for still not being ready to forgive her? Because that's where I'm at right now. I stayed for lunch, but I'm not ready to call her Mom. I'm not ready to have her at my wedding if Colette and I get married, and I'm not ready to pretend the last 17 years did not happen. Everyone, Elias, Dad, even some of my friends think that I should just let it go. But I feel like I have the right to my anger. I have the right to my boundaries, and I have the right to take as much time as I need. What I do now is that I'm tired of people telling me how I should feel. Tired of being told that holding on to anger makes me the bad guy. So tell me, am I the a-hole for not being ready to forgive my mentally ill mother who abandoned us but is now trying to make amends? Let me know in the comments section, but please, don't be too rough.